just worried about Saturday. Like the fact that they put that good game together against Cleveland makes me feel better. Justin Madubuike has been really, really good for the Ravens this year. Scruggs had 22 pass blocking snaps, didn't allow any pressures.
Yeah,
Saturday.
The biggest thing about the pass protection, whenever you get frustrated with Bobby Slowick running the ball too much, or with where you perceive some of the conservatism is a lot of it isn't just setting up the play action. It's also getting as many bodies it's getting as many bodies as possible between the defense and CJ Stroud. So, like when you're running 2 tight end sets, when you're using a fullback, all of that helps out your interior offensive line. That's if you wonder how come they're using a tight end to help out Laramie Tunsil, it's because they're trying to slide everything over towards that interior offensive line. So it's that's like the give and take of it. At some point, yeah, you'd love to get the point where I get really frustrated when I see people say like, let CJ cook. I'm like, do you want to let CJ get concussed? Do you want to let CJ have to basically be eating through a straw for the next 7 weeks? The Texans don't have the offensive line right now to actually let CJ cook.
Chuck it around.
Yeah, they don't have the weaponry either. Like that's where I get frustrated, honestly, that people don't really understand sometimes just what both CJ and Slowick are doing with the personnel that's around them. They've got serious limitations with a lot of this offensive personnel. And like some of the games that they've had are more impressive than just the stat line would show.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. They have limitations, yet CJ is like one of the, he is one of the hot things around the league right now. And the reason I bring that up is literally every analyst on the set for the NFL Network picked the Browns this week. And I'm looking at a graphic somebody showed me, or a screen grab somebody showed me of the pregame show with Michael Irvin and Mariucci and Kurt Warner, Rich Eisen. There's 6 of them that make picks. Everybody picked the Browns, which is a really, like empirically, that's a really weird thing. Like for a panel of 6 people to be unanimous about picking a team that's a 2-point favorite with Joe Flacco at
It's going on the road, right?
It's going on the road. That's just really, and now they're a 9.5-point underdog to the Baltimore Ravens. Like there's a disconnect it feels like in the ethos of CJ Stroud versus what people think this team is actually capable of.
I think a lot of it though too is when you look at some of the names, the Browns just have more name brand names outside of the quarterback situation. And even Joe Flacco. With Joe Flacco, I think it was too easy, given the run that he'd had at the end of the year. I think in people's minds, you just can't stop thinking about that Super Bowl run they had. And you feel like, you irrationally feel like, oh, wow, yeah, he's just going to go on another one of those runs where it almost doesn't even matter. They forget that in that Super Bowl run, he also was not throwing interceptions. Whereas in this lead up into this game, he was throwing interceptions. It was, I said... Before the game, I had said, well, he's going to turn into a pumpkin at some point. And then I realized, he actually already has turned into a pumpkin. He's just been lucky enough to be playing with a really good defense that can bail him out. Or he's gotten lucky in some of the situations. But it was more of a matter of just the pumpkin spoiling and souring, which it did in the Texans game. The other thing I think that people undercounted or dismissed was they thought, oh, Myles Garrett. In your mind, okay, Myles Garrett, huge name, versus Texans, rookie quarterback, offensive line, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of ignored the fact that Laramie Tunsil has owned Myles Garrett. Laramie Tunsil has flat out owned Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett made the mistake of he took the bait. I think he listened to people talking about how Laramie Tunsil has owned Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett, unlike last time he played the Texans, stayed right over Laramie Tunsil the entire time. Took very few snaps on the left side. Did not move around a lot the way he did the first time they played the Texans.
CJ was crazy good in various scenarios in that game versus pressure. 7 of 8 for 118 yards. On play action, 5 of 7 for $146, and all 3 of his touchdown passes came on play action. 153.3 rating. Against the blitz, 5 for 5. 126 yards and a touchdown, a perfect passer rating against. That's been the story with him all year. If you blitz him, you do so at your own peril.
Yeah,
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that's the one stat that was floating around a lot that people really latched onto was CJ's performance versus man versus man and zone versus man and zone coverage, and that he was really, really good versus zone and really, really bad versus man. That's where I get. There's so many teams. This is what the problem with sports writers. There's so many of them that really, really want to be smart. So they love starting to cite stats like that and everything without thinking a single moment about any of it and what it means. Because the other thing you have is that CJ's been very good versus the blitz, which is a higher degree of difficulty in facing man coverage, and he's been very good against it. I think sometimes you gotta look down into those stats a little bit and see, okay, well, which actual defenses were playing more man or zone. Versus and what point in the season was it, and all of the rest of it, because sometimes it's just a matchup thing. Sometimes it's a CJ actually grew throughout the season, and I wasn't concerned about that aspect of it one bit, because we've seen CJ make plenty of really nice throws versus tight man coverage where guys weren't open at all. It just hasn't been something that I've thought of as a clear and present problem the entire season. You look at it from week to week and how it all played out. Sure, the season stats work that way, but otherwise, that's like a Bill Barnwell stupid thing. You look at it's the same thing that plagues basketball right now. People look at regular season stats cumulatively and think that has anything to do with how it's gonna how you're gonna play versus the damn Spurs in Game 6.
Yeah,
damn it.